Welcome to Salcedo Paranormal. It is Tuesday, February 1st, 2022. And today I'll be sharing more true ghost stories from the web. As always, to find all episodes and links to social media and ways to donate and ways to contact me, you can visit the podcast page, which is salcedoparanormal.podbean.com. And that's SALSIDO paranormal.podbean.com. And as always, looking to hear from you all, whether it's comments or questions, or topic suggestions for the show, or stories of experiences, whether they're your own paranormal experiences or others that you trust. I'm always happy to share them, whether you want to send them in writing, in a written format, or if you ever want to join me here on the Discord, and I can have you on the show and talk about your experiences and go from there. So, that's basically it. Just one reminder, there will be a special stream this Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern, which will be the 100th episode of the podcast. And that's going by the stats that I get from the page that I use. So it's that'll be 100. I guess you could almost say official recordings. So had a couple of streams here and there where the technology didn't work, and they ended up just being streams. But in terms of episodes, plan is for Saturday to be the 100th episode. So that should be fun. That's going to be more of a interactive show, and I will explain that more on the day of, and of course in the Discord as well. So I'll get into these stories here. Just thank you all for listening, whether it's to the live stream on Discord or to the podcast feed or to the YouTube videos. I appreciate it, no matter how you listen. So this first story says, I work in investments. Wall Street hours. My building is a classic downtown glass skyscraper, but the floors were remodeled recently. Custom state-of-the-art technology, coded locked doors, light sensors, the works. Every day I arrive at the office around 5:30 a.m. and I'm always the first person on the premises. Others drift in around 8 a.m. Due to current events, we might have 5 employees total coming to work. Everyone else works remotely. This morning I arrived at my floor, and everything was dark as usual. However, as soon as I entered through the coded security door, I heard a loud female voice talking. Wow, I thought, people are coming back to the office. I was happy to have company. Lights popped on one by one as I advanced down the corridor to my office, and that's when I realized where the voice was coming from. The entire trading floor was black except for my office, which was fully brightly lit, and the TV was blaring at full volume behind a locked door. I stopped walking, bewildered, and looked around to see if anyone else was there, but I was alone. The lights on the entire floor were dark except for my office and where I was standing. I went into my office, turned off the TV, and started my day. 5 minutes later, the TV turned on again. I've been in this office for 7 months, and I'm its first occupant. The motion lights will sometimes activate when I'm alone, but I don't know about motion lights. Who knows? To be honest, I've never imagined an office building being haunted, but this was a very strange start to my day. And, as I always like to say, and something I've heard over the years, that basically ghosts or spirits or whatever, there's all kinds of different things and beings around us, I think. They just don't always do things to make themselves known. So, that's an interesting one that's in an office building. And I have heard of that, although usually the other stories I've heard of that take place in offices, they're kind of in more they're in older style buildings. I haven't really heard of a lot of stories in skyscrapers. But so that was a neat one to find. Especially with the security being what it is there and everything. Obviously anything is possible, but so I mean, I guess there's a chance someone could have gone in there and maybe played a joke, but then the TV did turn back on again. I always feel like, I think if it was going to be some other person in the area turning the device on, it would happen more often. I'm no expert in technology either, so it is interesting though that they said the motion lights turn on. I've heard about those things in different stories and had experiences with those, where sometimes people are surprised when the lights turn on and there doesn't seem to be anyone there. I've also had an experience where the lights didn't turn on, even though I heard sounds in the hallway outside of the room I was in at this training center I went to for the blind. This is basically there. It's a place where you can learn how to do different things, so that you can be more independent, live on your own, even if you have low vision or no vision. And yeah, there would be times when you'd be hearing footsteps out in the hallways, and then the lights would never turn on. So I've heard of both that happening both ways, and either way, that's still really interesting to me. But we'll go on to the next story here. This one says, it was the spring of 2008. I just started a job at a fancy resort in upstate New York. I was assigned to work in the kitchen of a golf course restaurant, which was a few miles from the main hotel and resort. The restaurant was a small cottage, that had a restaurant and a small locker room for golfers of both sexes and or to use. Lost my spot there. The first encounter that made me think something was up with this old cottage was in late April. The golf course was not yet open, as some snow still lay on the links. Only my boss, the head chef, and I were on the property prepping for a private party that was being hosted at the golf club. The kitchen was small and consisted of a small line with stoves, ovens, broilers, and a ticket window. This then led to a small dishwashing area that finally led to a small prep area that sported a screen door to the outside. I was in the prep area processing some vegetables for the evening service. It was a sunny, warm, late April afternoon, and I had the screen door open to the outside. All of a sudden, I heard the giggling of a child, which sounded like it was coming from just outside the screen door. The laughter got louder and louder until I finally checked out the door to find no one. The still closed golf course was empty. Soon after this, my boss came in to check on my progress. I told him the story and asked if he had seen some children playing outside the club. He said no, and then told me a story that chilled me. He had worked at these golf clubs for a few seasons now, and told me the club was haunted by a little boy. He said he moved stuff and plays tricks on people. I was instantly intrigued. I went out and bought a $20 digital voice recorder. This was 2008, and phones were not what they are today. The cheap device was my plan to see if the story was true. I set the recorder up in the creepiest part of the cottage. The women lockers where several waitstaff reported hearing voices and seeing things. I set the recorder up before I left for the night in the locker room and went home. The next day I came back to work and ran to the back to grab my recorder. I spent that whole day listening at work, but was too busy to really listen. When I got back home, I threw on some headphones and listened as close as I could. At one point, I captured two waitresses at the end of their shift talking. They were there, grabbing their purses and discussing tips. That's when I heard it. While they chatted, I could hear a voice whisper, "Out, now." The girls never acknowledge the voice. They keep talking, as a voice that sounds like a low whisper is speaking. I was blown away. A $20 recorder, and the joke I was trying to disprove was seeming more real by the second. Determined to get to the bottom of this, I ran into work the next day, recorder in hand. I went up to the women's locker room, located on the top floor, and in the back of the cottage. I was alone. 6:30 a.m., the first to arrive. I took out my recorder, and I started to ask questions. What is your name? Why are you here? Pausing for a minute or two between questions. Silence. I hear nothing. After 10 questions or so, I take my recorder out to my car to hook up to my larger car speakers. This is when I knew once and for all, ghosts are very real. So real, I well up with tears just writing this for you all. After I ask what is your name, I hear clear as day, a name, repeated 3 times. But this was not a living person. It sounded as if I was making a movie, like how a creepy ghost boy would sound in a horror movie. But this was real. This was some kid playing around his work with a $20 recorder, thinking his boss was pulling his leg. I let dozens and dozens of people hear this tape, scaring friends and family for years with this tape. Eventually the recorder was lost, and I don't have it to share with you all today. But again, I'm not a ghost hunter. I'm not selling anything. I'm a guy on the internet telling a story. Since that day, I have believed in ghosts. And aside from putting the recorder in places without getting anyone's permission. Um, doesn't seem like the best idea. Um, it's really interesting, the stuff that they caught on the recorder. Um, I wonder. It's always hard to tell who or what you're actually getting. There's so many different possibilities with these recorder or with any recorder. But it is interesting that the the voice that the writer heard was a boy's voice when he heard it outside, and then the voice, even though it may have sounded strange on the recorder, it still sounded like a boy's voice. So I thought that was interesting. And sometimes, even when voices are saying mundane things like regular names, I didn't include the name in the story there, but it's just a basic boy's name. Um, it's even when the voices seem like they're strange. I think it's important not to necessarily pin a lot of intent or anything like that on the recording, just because you never know what you're getting. I would always, of course, say go by what you feel, trust your feelings. But I mean, the writer apparently worked there and worked there for a while, so um, at least it didn't seem to be anything that was doing anything bad. But very interesting, the amount of activity there. So let's see here. I'll go on to the next story. And so let's see here. Okay. This one says, so back when I was still going to high school, I spent the night at my best friend's place. He lived in a basement. Well, I woke up and went to the bathroom, and as soon as I get back to the room, I got back into. Oh, sorry, I messed that sentence up. As soon as I got back to the room and laid back down, I closed my eyes. Then I felt like something was staring at me. I opened my eyes and saw a pale child staring at me. The dark eyes felt like it was staring into my soul. I yelled out for my friend. As soon as he came into the room, the child disappeared. I told him what happened, and of course he didn't believe me. Everyone who slept in that room has seen him. His girlfriend, brothers, and me, but he never saw him. Until this day, I still remember that pale, dark-eyed child. And sorry about the stumbling there. I thought I had edited that one well, but apparently not. So that's always interesting when you get one person that doesn't believe in what's going on when several other people have experiences with the same or a similar thing. So, but again, it's hard to say what that was and what they wanted there, but it's really interesting. Like I said, that multiple people saw the same thing. So, not much more to go on that one. It disappeared, then yeah, obviously it's not just any chance of someone having broken in or anything like that. So, especially if it's a basement. But interesting that there were two stories there in a row with ghost boys. So, okay, I'll go on to the next story here. This one says, this happened yesterday. I had just gotten out of the bath and went to my room to get my phone. I decided to lay on my bed for a few seconds because I was tired. And as soon as my head hit the bed, I heard some movement under my bed, and a quiet voice whispered, "Hello?" It really creeped me out, so I just got up and left the room. This hasn't happened to me before, and I can't think of any explanations because no one else was in my room. And that's where that one ends. I mean, I guess unless they were laying on their phone, which they didn't say they were. And then they said they heard movement, felt movement. So, but yeah, that's an odd one as well. I don't know what to make of that. It's one thing you would not want to be having happen is hearing things and feeling things under you when you're in your bed. It's surprising enough when you have, like I had the one time, someone sit on the bed next to me and lean against my leg. That was enough of a surprise. Like, I don't think I want to deal with under. So, hopefully that was the only experience I had with that. Looks like we might get through all these stories today, or at least most of them. Okay, so this next one says, a bit of background. I was told by my parents to not go near the other side. I now don't speak to them, so I decided to go near that side of me again. I was working down in Wales, and I had a feeling that something was watching me late at night. I went to the restroom, and when I went back to where I was working, I saw in the corner of my eye a female who was slim, had dark brown hair, and a gray dress. That's the first time I'd ever seen any type of apparition in years. I had also felt that she was guarding this place, or was protecting something I was working at, and wasn't the slightest happy that I was there. I had to think about it and decided to try and to talk to her over the next few days. I realized I wasn't just talking to myself, but something else was next to me and listening. When I told her I would be leaving, she became very angry, slamming doors, and then disappeared. When I first told my partner about this situation, she 100% believed it. On the day I was due back, a spirit traveled to where I lived. I have a photo of her footprint next to my fire. I thought it was the right time today to try and call out to her in my home and see if I could get a hold of her. I was very successful and found out quite a bit. She was and is female, aged 25. I initially guessed mid-20s, but I didn't expect to be right on. She was protecting the grounds from strangers as she had siblings and felt that she should guard the place as she guarded them. She had 3 siblings. She also had kids. I forgot to ask how many. She also knew she had died, which was very surprising to her. To hear, I'm sorry. I had asked her if she had passed away at the place I was working, and she said yes. She had been wanting to leave the property for years, but she had nowhere she wanted to go. I also asked her if she was watching over my son, who was 7 months old, and she said that's one of the reasons she was staying. I lastly asked if there was anyone else in the property, and she confirmed this to me. I had a feeling there was another spirit here, way before she arrived. He is an older man, about in his 50s, okay, who resides mostly in my front room, but also goes into my bedroom and my son's room. I am going to try and talk to her again soon. And I just really thought that was an interesting one because of such direct communication there. Um, Obviously, people can fake things and exaggerate things, but that's not totally unheard of either. What the way they're describing their communication. Um, so I can't really say that 100% for sure that that story is fake or exaggerated, which is really interesting. Um, so especially the amount of detail the writer got from the spirit that they met, basically, I guess, while they were at work, wherever they were working. So sounds like they're sensitive to this kind of stuff. So very interesting story there. But I'll go on to the next one. This one says, if there are any paranormal enthusiasts out there, I would love to finally make sense of the story. This is all my mother's account, as I was obviously much too young to remember anything firsthand. When I was 2, we moved across the country and to the state my mom grew up in. A while after we'd settled into our apartment, I started telling my mother stories of this woman who would visit me in my room while I was sitting in my crib. I described her as this heavy-set woman with black, short, curly hair and round glasses. I kept telling my mom stories of this woman visiting me until one day she pulled out an old scrapbook and pointed to a lady identical to who I described. She asked if that was her. I immediately said yes, that was a woman. And my mom later said she couldn't believe it because that was her grandmother, who had died in the 80s. I was born in 2003. I still can't make sense of this story. And I love those kind of stories in a way because they pop up so often. Um, Really interesting how apparently in some cases relatives will come and visit the basically the children from their families. They're just, I guess, their descendants, I guess, would be it. But they visit loved ones who have no idea who they are until later, until after the fact. It's really interesting. That again, like I said, that shows up in a lot of stories. So, but thought that was a good one. I like it when those stories end on a bad note, which is what I like as well. So, we got 2 more to go here today. This next one says, my parents built their house in 1974 in a very small, very old subdivision in upstate New York. Next door is a 3-level, 3-family home that was built long before theirs, sometime in the late 1800s. This past fall, my son and I were raking leaves on an unusually warm Saturday afternoon. I enjoyed telling my son about all the trees that are still up and how my friends and I used to use them as bases when playing kickball back there. My parents don't have space, but they do have a pretty sizable backyard. While clearing an area by a tree found close to the back corner of the yard, I came across what appeared to be a small broom. It was severely rusted and seemed to be literally coming out of the tree, as the tree seems to be shedding some of its bark. It was very strange. I could not believe that it was there for a long time. Someone would have seen it somehow. Anyway, I picked it up and started feeling the bristles. They literally fell out as strings of dirt and just became a part of the ground at that point. We took the remnants of it inside to show my mom. She and my dad, who passed away nearly 10 years ago, used to live in that house next door when my grandparents owned it. During that time, she said that a family living in the first floor of the house at the time used to work on cars in that exact same spot before they built the house and put a fence up and so forth. We chatted for a while, threw the old broom away, and finished raking the yard. Ever since that day, my 2 or 3-year-old dog literally sprints in a line, like there is a squirrel there, back to that same exact spot as soon as we get to my mom's house. Barks when she gets behind the tree, stops abruptly, wags her tail uncontrollably, and then nonchalantly strolls through the yard to find a stick, do her business, or whatever it is she feels like doing. It never happened prior to that day, and now we just laugh because it's her thing to do when we get there. And that is odd. Just the odd sequence of events there, in a way. They find something that the writer finds something that they feel like they should have seen before. They get it out of there because it's basically falling apart. I wonder what would happen if they would have left it there. And then, not long after, their dog starts going back to that corner and almost acting like it seems like they're meeting someone back there. So that's a really interesting story. It never happened before. The dog never did that before, only after they found that broom. So, yeah, I don't know what to make of that, but it's a really interesting one. I do believe when animals react to things and react in different ways and places, they can't lie. They can't exaggerate. You know, they're not people. They can't. They go by what they experience directly. There's no. I don't think there's any bias there. So, always really interesting when cats or dogs or animals in general react to things. And again, it wasn't a negative thing, which is good. So I'm just saying, whenever they react to things, it's always interesting when the people can't see or tell what they're reacting to. This last story says, I'm not sure if this is the correct place for this. I'm not sure what it was that I just witnessed. Earlier in the day, a package of mine was delivered to the wrong address. Thankfully, someone I know. I just went over to get it, and while on my way home, I passed by a few trees. No forest or dense trees. There was maybe 10 total on either side of the road. This is on the edge of a neighborhood, and after that is fields. Out of nowhere, a bright light quickly passed by my car. I'd say about 6 feet off the ground. It went from one grouping of trees to the other. I stopped because I didn't know what it was, and if maybe there was a kid playing with a toy or something. I didn't see anything. A car heading in the opposite direction also witnessed this and stopped. Also someone I know. Very small town. He hopped out of his car and asked if I saw the same thing as him, which I did. Neither of us have any idea what this could have been. It was moving fast, flew straight across, and disappeared once it reached the trees. This may not have been paranormal, but I can't think of what this could have been. And there we go. Strange lights. Although, doesn't sound like it was very too far up in the sky. But, yeah, I'm with the writer. I have no idea what that was either. They don't say they saw a craft. They don't say they saw a person flying, a spirit flying. Just a light. But again, lights are so common in so many different experiences, types of experiences, whether it's ghosts or UFOs or even things out in the woods, that sometimes they start off or they turn into lights, but they're also seen as other things. So basically the idea of cryptids of some kind that can change, and other things as well. So I have no idea what that was, but it's very interesting. I think that's going to do it for today. So got through all the stories I had, and that'll do it for now. I'll find more for tomorrow night, and we'll go from there. So thank you all for being here as always, and I will talk to you all tomorrow night on the next episode of Salcedo Paranormal.